The playground was a riot of color and chaos, kids shrieking as they darted across slides and swings under a late summer sun. Jake Turner sat on a weathered bench, his calloused hands wrapped around a thermos of black coffee, watching his twin daughters, Lily and Emma, chase each other through the mulch. Their giggles were his anchor, a lifeline after years of carrying the weight of war and loss. A single dad and a veteran, Jake had seen enough of the world's cruelty to know that these moments to his girls, Happy, Safia, were worth every scar he bore. But then he saw her, a girl, maybe 10, standing rigid near the climbing wall, her fists clenched. Two other kids, bigger, maybe 12, loomed over her. The boy in front was loud, his voice sharp as he mocked her braided pigtails and scuffed sneakers. The girl behind him laughed, egging him on. The smaller girl's eyes glistened, but she didn't back down, her chin jutting out defiantly. Jake's jaw tightened. He knew that look of fear masking courage. He'd seen it in soldiers, in himself, and now in this kid. He stood, brushing off his faded jeans, and crossed the playground in long, measured strides. The twins noticed, their laughter pausing as they watched their dad move with that quiet purpose they knew meant something was wrong. "Hey," Jake called, his voice calm but firm, like he was addressing a squad. The bullies froze. The boy turned, sneering, but Jake's 6-foot frame and the steel in his hazel eyes made the kid's bravado flicker. "You got a problem here?" Jake asked, looking at the girl, not the bullies. She shook her head, but her trembling lips said otherwise. "They're just a broken bar being mean," she mumbled, staring at the ground. Jake knelt to her level, ignoring the bullies for a moment. "What's your name?" "Sophie," she whispered. "Sophie, you're doing great standing your ground. Takes guts." He gave her a small, encouraging smile, the kind he'd used to steady his girls after nightmares. Then he stood, turning to the bullies. "You two, walk away." "Now," the boy scoffed, but the girl behind him tugged his sleeve, suddenly unsure. Jake didn't move, didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Years of facing down chaos in deserts and war zones had carved a quiet authority into him. The bullies muttered something and slunk off, disappearing into the crowd of kids. Sophie exhaled, her shoulders loosening. "Thanks," she said, barely audible. "No problem," Jake replied, glancing at his daughters, who were now running toward him, their ponytails bouncing. "You okay to play now?" Sophie nodded, a shy smile breaking through. "Yeah, I think so." Jake watched her scamper back to the climbing wall, then returned to his bench, his girls trailing him with questions. "Why'd you help her, Daddy?" Emma asked, her brown eyes wide. "'Cause it's the right thing," Jake said simply, ruffling her hair. "Always look out for people who need it." The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of laughter and ice cream cones, the incident fading into the rhythm of a normal day. Jake didn't think much of it. Helping was just what you did. He'd learned that on the battlefield and in the years since, raising his girls alone after their mom passed. You step up, no questions asked. A week later, Jake was at the auto shop where he worked, elbow deep in a truck's engine, when a sleek black SUV pulled into the lot. A woman stepped out, sharp in a tailored blazer, her heels clicking on the pavement. She scanned the garage until her eyes landed on Jake. "Mr. Turner?" she asked, her voice polished but warm. Jake wiped his hands on a rag, frowning. "That's me. Can I help you?" "I'm Laurel Bennett," she said, extending a hand. "Sophie's mom." Jake's brow furrowed, the name clicking. "Sophie, the girl from the park?" Laura nodded, her expression softening. "I wanted to thank you. Sophie told me what happened. She's been struggling at school in Newtown, new kids. Those bully-ass a broken bar, they've been relentless. You stepping in meant more than you know." Jake shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "Just doing what anyone would." "Not anyone," Laura said, her eyes holding his. "Most people look the other way." "You didn't." She hesitated, then added, "I run a tech company downtown. I'd like to do something for you. Maybe help with your daughter's school supplies." "Or a broken bar," she trailed off, sensing his unease. Jake shook his head. "Appreciate it, but I'm good. My girls and we get by." Laura studied him, then smiled. "I figured you'd say that. Sophie mentioned you have twins. She's been talking about them non-stop. Wants to be friends. Maybe we could set up a playdate at 8. Jake relaxed, the idea grounding him. "Yeah, The girls would love that. What Jake didn't know or couldn't have known was that Laura Bennett wasn't just any mom. She was the CEO of a Fortune 500 tech firm, a name that graced business magazines and charity galas. Sophie wasn't just a shy kid at the park, she was the daughter of a woman who could move mountains with a phone call. But to Jake, none of that mattered. Sophie was just a kid who needed help, and he'd been there. Weeks later, the playdate happened at the same park. Sophie, Lily, and Emmett were across the playground, their laughter blending as they invented some elaborate game with rules only they understood. Jake and Laura sat on the same weathered bench, sipping coffee from paper cups. "You're a good dad," Laura said quietly, watching the girls. "Sophie's been happier since that day. She says you're a hero." Jake chuckled, shaking his head. "Nah, just a guy trying to raise his kids right." Laura smiled, but her eyes were serious. "You don't get it, do you? You didn't just stop a bully. You showed Sophie she's worth standing up for. That's everything." Jake looked at his daughters, their faces flushed with joy, and felt a warmth settle in his chest. He hadn't set out to change anyone's life that day. He'd just seen a kid in trouble and acted. But as he watched Sophie chase his girls, her shy smile now bright and bold, he realized something. Kindness ripples. One small act of standing up, speaking out, could touch lives in ways you'd never expect. The sun dipped low, painting the sky gold. Jake leaned back, listening to the girls' laughter, and thought maybe, just maybe, the world wasn't as heavy as it sometimes felt. Not when you could still make a difference. One kid, one moment at a time.